students, welcome back. This is Dr. Mercado speaking. I hope all of you are doing well and are getting ready to start a brand new week. This week we are going to be dealing with Chapter 17, Process Cost Systems. So this is going to be a little bit different than what we did in Chapter 16. Chapter 16 was a job order cost system, which was specific jobs that were different per se. In a process cost system, this is more best suited for industries that mass produce identical items. Okay, costs are basically charged to a processing department rather than jobs, as with the job order cost system. These costs are then transferred from one department to the next until the production is finally finished. So works very well, like for maquiladoras, if they're manufacturing the same product. It goes from one process to the other process to the next process, and finally we have a finished goods. And all of the merchandise or whatever it is that they were making is the same product. Last week we covered job order, which was more specific to unique items, specific to what we were catering to the needs of specific clients, so they had specific requests, so it was more custom based. In this particular chapter, there's a lot of information being covered. We are going to be dealing with a cost of production report. That's going to be covered in, I believe, my second video. I'm going to actually show you how to complete a cost of production report. We're also going to go over several journal entries to record the cost flows and transactions for a process cost system. These includes the purchase of materials, the usage of materials and direct labor, the incurrence of overhead, and the application of overhead to departments, as well as transferring costs among departments and to the finished goods. Okay, when the goods are finally sold, these costs are then transferred from finished goods to the cost of goods sold. So we're going to be going through the whole process in this chapter. So it's just make sure that we read the chapter before we attempt any of your problems. That way we are familiar with the content. There's a lot of exhibits in the chapter. Make sure that you, as you're reading the information, you refer to the exhibits and follow along. That way you can see the flow of information and you can be able to understand what's going on. Now I'm going to be breaking these lectures into shorter videos, one per problem. That way you can easily access the specific problem that you're wanting to review. And of course, so the videos are a little bit shorter. That way you don't have to listen to me speak for an hour and a half at a time. You can just select the video and then you can listen to that specific portion. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into the first exercise that I'm going to be doing today. This is exercise 17-7. Okay, let me find that. Okay, so exercise 17-7 deals with equivalent units of production. So it says the following information concerns production in the baking department for December. All direct materials are placed in process at the beginning of production. That is very important. Okay, all direct materials are placed in process at the beginning of production. So regardless whether you finish the goods or not in that specific period, the materials, are going to be placed in production that month. So what does that mean? That means that maybe, let's say we start producing 100,000 umbrellas, okay? And we don't finish manufacturing the 100,000 umbrellas this month, okay? But we started them all this month. The materials are going to be allocated the month that we start production. So that would be the current month, okay? That is very important because that affects our equivalent units of production calculation. You always need to be aware, depending on what the information provided is, you need to identify when do we start producing these goods, because that is the month that I am going to charge my materials for, okay? So we're provided with our working process account, and then they give you a whole bunch of information: the beginning balance, the direct materials, labor, overhead, goods finished, and then they're asking us to calculate some items. Okay, so let's go through this information slowly. So it says here, on December the 1st, we had a balance of 24,000 units. There were 3/4 completed. So we started those goods last period and we didn't get to finish them, so we're transferring them over to this month so we can finish those goods. Okay. During the month of December, I added direct materials of 134,000 units. I added direct labor of 150,000. Factory overhead of 375,000. So I manufactured some goods here in the baking department. And then on December the 31st, I transferred out of working process to finished goods 128,000 units. So what does that mean? It means that I completed 128,000 units at the end of the month, and I transferred those goods from my working process account to my finished goods account. Why? Because those goods are ready to be sold. Okay? And then they're asking us to figure out our ending balances. Okay? So it says, determine the number of units in working process inventory at December 31st. So how many units are still sitting in your working process baking department account as of the end of December? These are the goods that have been started, but we did not get to finish them for whatever reason. Okay, so they're work in process. They're not done yet. Okay. So that's the first thing. And then letter B, we have to determine the equivalent units of production for direct materials and conversion cost in December. Okay. So let's first tackle the first requirement. It says determine the number of units in working process inventory at the end of the month, December 31st. Okay. So I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off with my units in process at the beginning of the month. What are we starting off with in December? Well, in December, I'm starting off with units in process as of December the 1st of 24,000 units. Okay? Right here. We have 24,000 units that are we carried forward from last month that we haven't finished. 24,000 units. It's the beginning balance that we have sitting in our working process account. Okay? Units. Missing an S. There we go. Okay? Now, how many more units did we start producing in December? Well, it says that we started producing units placed into production for December. It says right here that we started or we put into production 134,000 units. Okay. Okay. 134,000 units were put into brand new production in the month of December. So these 24,000 units was a carry forward from November. We carried them over from November to December. We didn't get to finish them in November, so now we're going to finish them in December. And then in December, I started production of an additional 134,000 units. Okay. Now, at the end of the month, I had finished 128,000 units. That was your finished goods. Okay. According to the problem, at the end of the month, you finished 128,000 units. Okay. So, units finished during December. And I'm going to put that in minus or in parentheses because I'm going to subtract these. These units were finished, complete. I can deduct them. Okay? So now I started with 24,000 units. I added 134 during the month. I finished 128. So then how many do we have in process at the end of the month? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add these. And that gives me 30,000 units. So what does this tell me? Well, it tells you that you started with 24,000 units from last month. You put into production an extra 134,000 units. You finished a combined total of 128. That includes what you had started in November that you finished in December and what you put into production in December. So you finished 128,000 units. So that means that you have 30,000 units remaining from what you put in production in December that have not been completed. Now remember, this is a flow. You will always finish the beginning balance first before you finish what you start in production. So you always have to finish what you started with your oldest. You always have to finish it and then move forward to the newest. Okay. So these 30,000 units are from the batch from December that you started but you did not complete. Okay. So that means that I have 30,000 units sitting in my baking department in working process that are pending to be completed. Okay. So that is basically requirement A. Determine the number of units in working process as of December 31st. Well, I have 30,000 units in process. Okay, now letter B is a little bit more complicated. It says determine the equivalent units of production for direct materials and conversion cost in December. Now it's very important that we go to the section of your book that talks about computing equivalent units of production. Okay, so basically that particular section goes over the difference between whole units and equivalent units of production units. Okay, so basically a whole unit is a number of units in production during a period, whether completed or not. Okay, so a whole unit is, okay, if it's in production, whether it's finished or not finished, we're going to count it as a whole unit. Okay, but then we have the equivalent units of production, and that is the portion of the whole units that are complete with respect to materials or conversion. Conversion is basically your direct labor and factory overhead. Okay, so here we're breaking out our costs into two, materials and conversion. And under conversion, we have direct labor and factory overhead. Okay, so conversion cost is equal to your direct labor plus your factory overhead. Okay. So we have direct materials, direct labor, and overhead. And direct labor and overhead combined, that gives you your conversion cost. Okay. So the equivalent units for materials and conversion costs are usually determined separately. That's why we have this little diagram going on. That way we can split out the difference. Usually direct materials are added at the beginning of production. Okay, and conversion cost is more as we go. Okay, so let's use this template that we have set up here to do requirement B. So it says determine the equivalent units of production for direct materials and conversion cost in December. Okay, so we've got our whole units. Remember, whole units are the number of units in production during a period. Then we've got our equivalent units for direct materials and conversion. Okay, so let's start off with our inventory in process. December the 1st. Okay, and these are 3/4 complete. Okay. So, our beginning inventory. How many units do we have? And this moved. That's fine. I can just remove it, relocate. Okay. So, how many whole units did we have for our inventory in process at the beginning of the month, December 1st? Well, we had 24,000 units, okay, that we had in our inventory in process, 24,000 units. Now, out of those 24,000 units, how much cost am I going to allocate for direct materials? Now, this is where it's very important. It says right here, let me go ahead and mark it. Direct materials are placed in process at the beginning of production. Okay, when did we put those items in production? When did we start that inventory? Did we start it this month or did we start it last month? Because we started them last month, then the direct materials were added last month in November. Okay, this month we are not going to have any direct materials. We don't have any direct materials because the materials are added at the beginning of production. This is not the beginning of production. The beginning of production was last month. That's when we started them. So for direct material purposes, I don't have any direct materials costs because the cost has already been added last month. Now, for conversion we do have a cost associated. So it says that we had 24,000 units and they're 3/4 completed. So if we need to finish those units this month, okay, how much am I going to have to complete? Okay, so let me do the calculation here. Let me get my calculator. So I know I had 24,000 units. I know there were 3/4 complete. So if they're 3/4 complete, then how much are we incomplete? How much do we have to finish this month? Well, I'm going to multiply that by 1/4. That is what we need to complete. Okay, 1/4 is what needs to be completed. Okay, 3/4 have already been completed last month. In December, I'm going to complete 1/4, which is equivalent to 6,000. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. That is going to be your conversion cost. Okay, let me put it down here. It'll be the 24,000 units. Okay. And it's 100% complete minus 75 is already completed. So we only have to complete the 25% portion, okay? So you can do that. So it'll be 24,000 times 100% minus 75%, that's 25%, and that gives you your 6,000 right there. Okay? Okay, so that is what we started off with. Okay, we started with 24,000 units. We don't have any materials because the materials were already charged last month. This month, we're going to have conversion costs to complete 6,000 of those units. Okay? Okay, the next thing we have is the units that we started and completed in December. Okay? So, the units that we started and completed in December. So, this gets a little bit tricky, okay? Let's look at what we did in letter A. Okay, I know that I started with 24,000. I know that I added 134, and I know that we finished 128. So that means that we have 30,000 units in process, correct? Okay. Now, those 30,000 units, okay, they're in process, and these are coming from the batch of the 134,000 units that we started in December the 31st, okay? So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the 134,000, which is your direct materials in units, 134, and I'm going to subtract the 30,000 units that are in process at the end of the period. And then let's see what that gives us. That gives me 104,000 units. Okay, so these were the units that I started in December and I finished in December. Okay, so what I did is I got my materials for the 134 units that I started this month. I deducted the 30,000 that are pending to be completed, and that tells me that I have 104,000 units that were started and finished during the month of December. Okay, so I've got 104,000. Okay, how about for direct materials? What does it say? Direct materials are added at the beginning of production. So are we at, or is this brand new production? Yes. We started manufacturing these 134,000 units in December. So we're going to add direct materials of $104,000. Okay. How about conversion? Well, these are started and completed. So we started them and we finished them. So we incurred conversion costs of the 104,000 units. Okay. So now that we have our beginning inventory and what we started and completed, I can get what was transferred to finished goods in December. Okay, so I'm going to add my beginning inventory plus what I started and completed, and we're going to get a total for each column. Okay, So I've got 128 for my whole units. I've got 104,000 units for direct materials purposes, and I've got 110,000 units for conversion cost purposes. Okay. So now I have my inventory in process. December the 31st. And these are half completed. Oh, sorry. Half completed. Okay. So this is the inventory in process. These are your 30,000 units from down here that you did not get to finish. Okay. They're half complete. Okay. So how many units did not complete? Okay, let me delete here. Well, it says here, shapes, that you didn't finish 30,000 units. Okay. So the 30,000 units that you did not finish, that's your inventory in process. Okay. So we did not finish 30,000 units. Okay. When did you start production of those goods? This month. Because it's this month, the month that you put the items on production is the month that you're going to add your materials. So I'm going to add my materials of 30,000. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to calculate our conversion cost. Now remember, these are half completed. So to calculate our conversion cost, I'm going to get the 30,000 units times half. Okay. Or 50%, whatever you want. Okay. And then that gives us 15,000 units. So it says here that they're half complete. So we're going to charge conversion cost for the half, and that's 15,000 units. Okay. And now I can get my total. Okay. So I'm going to add whatever you got transferred to finished goods in December, plus the inventory in process at the end of the month, and that's going to give you your total, and we're going to do that for each column. Okay. If you're using Excel, you can just select the cell, look at the little corner, grab it, and then just carry it forward, and you'll copy the formula. Okay. So that's 128,000 plus 30, that's 158. 104 plus 30, that's 134. 110 plus 15, that's 125. Those are your totals for your whole units, your direct materials units, and your conversion cost. Okay. The only issue that I foresee here is the direct materials. Students get confused. You're going to add materials to your started and completed and your ending inventory the month that it's placed in production. Okay. So if you placed the goods in production this month, you're going to charge all of your materials this month, regardless if you finish it or not. Okay. Regardless. Okay. Now the conversion cost, that is based on actual completion. So you're only going to charge the percentage that was completed. Okay. So make sure that you do go back and you review those sections that talks about materials equivalent units and conversion equivalent units, so you can have a better understanding of what's going on. Okay. So that is the completed, determine the equivalent units of production for direct materials and conversion cost right here. So these are your answers. Your units in process is 30,000. Your direct materials is 134,000. And your conversion cost is for 125,000 units. Okay. So that is basically it for exercise 17-7. Okay. I will be having other videos for this chapter. Please make sure that you listen to them, and please don't forget to read the chapter. Okay. Super important that you read before you attempt any of your assignments. So that is basically it for this problem. Until next time. Thank you.